I get fancy.
And good evening. I'm Sandy Sandison, your host for Riverside on cable. We're going to be talking to the people, the fine folk actually, who are Kidstuff. This is Rob D'Arc on my right, Wendy D'Arc on my left. Stand by for a loaded question.
Yes.
Rob, what is Kidstuff?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked that.
I had no choice. It says ask, Rob.
Well, we're one of only 30 nonprofit permanent puppet theaters in the United States of America. We're right here in Riverside, and we've just celebrated our 5th anniversary. We have shows in our puppet theater. We have a full puppet museum. And we also go out and do programs out at the schools, field trips, in-service training, and seminars. We have a full puppet workshop where we produce all of our different shows.
Then all these marvelous people around us are creations of yours?
Well, some of them, and then, of course, my wife, Wendy, does a good deal of the work at Kidstuff.
You're the costumer for the people?
Primarily, yes.
Wendy's official title is Artistic Director at Kidstuff.
Wendy, what's the statement of purpose? Is there a statement per se?
Yes. Our main purpose is to bring different forms of theater, including puppetry, to children and families.
We don't have to tell you that this is a time that's very hostile to the arts, and that it used to be that people knew that at least the arts were good for you. And people don't even know that they're good for you anymore. You know, we have, the arts are not being taught in the schools, and we have a whole generation of families that are raised on the television, and so the arts are really in a serious threat of existence, and we need to reintroduce a whole new generation to the arts, and one way of doing that is through quote-unquote children's theater.
I had a little boy in my classroom that wouldn't speak. He hesitated talking, and I was trying to get him to open up and talk to me, but he seemed to be threatened by an adult, and I didn't really know where to start and how to handle him. So when I found Rob D'Arc, he seemed to hit it right on the head. He seemed to know what wouldn't make the little boy threatened by using some kind of a little animal that he liked. So we came up with the Bud. So we worked with him, and he made him up, and it's helped tremendously. The little boy now talks all the time, and his friend is Bud. He asks for him, and he relates to him as if he was totally alive.
Less and less being done in the schools because of all of the budgetary cuts and things like that, and teachers are beleaguered. They have so many things that they need to learn to do to keep current, and so the last thing that they need to do is learn, you know, how to do this and this and this, and also be an entertainer as well, and that's where we come in. We do in-service, we go into the schools, we do field trips, we go out to the schools and do programs at the schools, and by that way we keep some introductions to the arts alive, you know, in the school district. And then we also offer very, very low prices in our shows so that the general public could come often. In fact, we have a season pass. They can come all year round for $33 a year. That's less than a major theme park would charge for one day.
Agreed.
And they can come as often as they like. It also gives them 10% off on our birthday parties, which we do there.
We have a show that's just for you. We mention the birthday child's name throughout the course of the show. Then you have your cake or your ice cream or whatever you bring in our party room. We don't provide the food or the paper goods, but we have a refrigerator to keep everything cold. And at the end of an hour and a half, when you go home, we clean up the mess.
So it's all music.
It sounds as though if I were a single parent, and let's not go any further in that conversation, this would be the place I could take the child at a minimal expense, $33-something a year pass? Is that
for a pass, and $3 a person. Children under 2 are free for a regular admission.
And I'm in downtown Riverside where I have parking, free parking. And you're open year-round, or is this a seasonal thing for you?
Except for we usually close for a month to do renovation work in the theater.
The last 2 weeks of August.
The last 2 weeks of August and the first 2 of September.
And again, let's repeat that phone number to call, because maybe you didn't have a pad or pencil out there.
684-4555. And if you don't get us, you can leave a message on our machine, and we'll get back to you. You want to show them that hand puppet over there?
Yeah, would you please?
Explain a little bit about him.
And let's hold him up for a minute so we can get a camera on this very distinguished-looking scholar with a tie, I believe?
Yes. He's wearing a
turtleneck.
Turtleneck, yes. He's a hotel manager from a puppet show called Pip and Squeak Go Bonkers. Pip and Squeak are our most popular puppet characters, and he's got kind of a Frank Nelson sort of voice. He's a hotel manager.
He definitely should be coming back for a return engagement.
Oh.
Along with my friend here. What was his name again?
Well, that was just T-Rex from
T-Rex.
Yeah, Santa Claus meets the dinosaurs. Then let's see. You want to show him that prop over there?
Yeah.
This is a cloth-headed hand puppet.
There's my hairspray. I was looking for
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry. Well, we needed something to prop him up on. That's a latex-headed puppet.
Latex.
This is a latex hairspray, too. But
Yeah. That's from our new show, Zoo Done It.
that's Zoo Done It.
Yes,
Done
it's a mystery. It takes place in the zoo.
That's got all kinds of possibilities.
That's Harold Square,
Herald Square.
and
Which
he
is
looks
why
it
he's
too.
so square.
And you thought that my lines were bad in previous shows. Herald
Oh.
Square tops any I've used in the last 2 months. And what does Harold play? He's got a coat with all kinds of pockets.
He's a
and...
zookeeper.
Zookeeper.
Aha!
He's the token human in the puppet show Zoo Done It.
How neat. We have the zookeeper, and his name again, Harold Square.
Harold Square.
We'll be back with Harold's friends, and I hate to say the word owner, but his senior partners. We're talking to Rob and Wendy D'Arc of Kidstuff. Stay tuned, and we have more and more to show you about Kidstuff. This is going to be fun. And welcome back to Riverside on Cable. I'm your host, and I'm a very amused host tonight. We're talking to the folks from Kidstuff, and by folks I mean the folks on my right, the folks on my left, and my far right and my far left. These names, you'll hear from them. We've mentioned some of them earlier, but this is Rob D'Arc on my right and Wendy D'Arc on my left. Now for the people behind the puppets. God, that sounds like quite a cliche.
It does, doesn't it?
It is. But you are the people behind.
And sometimes we're inside the puppets, and sometimes we're under the puppets, and sometimes we're standing over the puppets.
That's involvement.
Yes, absolutely. We're completely revolve around the puppets.
So let's go distaff and find out who you are and where you're from. Your name is Wendy D'Arc. That'll help you. And your background in puppetry is a master's degree at the University
No
of Puppet?
master's degree, no degree. She's just...
There's only one university that we know of that actually gives a degree in puppetry, and that's in Connecticut, University of Connecticut.
They're the only
I didn't
ones in the
realize
U.S.
they did.
that actually has a degree.
See, I don't have a puppet. I
program.
have to turn these pages myself.
Oh.
My background primarily is art, usually two-dimensional. However, that has changed.
So from what we've seen, three-dimensional works very well for you.
Well, Rob does most of the sculpture. However, I have for years dabbled with working with fabric, and the Woodsman is definitely an example of having a little too much fun working with fabric.
Now, this character, again, is the woodsman.
Right. There's over 60 hours of time in just that
the
one
costume.
costume alone.
Very easily.
Primarily because he works with rods.
That's a style of puppetry we call bunraku. Wendy did this whole costume. This is
my favorite costume.
this is all hand sewn. All of those leaves are hand painted, hand appliqued, put on.
And he is a rod.
A rod puppet.
That still is leaving me, the neophyte.
Okay, well.
That's
let
another
me
rod
explain
puppet.
it. There is literally nothing underneath the dress. She's
It's just a torso and a
done
head.
with this and the rods.
Okay.
So that's
So one hand.
one hand holds the head and the other hand operates the arms.
You're lovely, my dear. Is she a heroine or is she a villainess?
Well, both of those characters come from our Christmas show, The Legend of Santa Claus, and they're the inhabitants of the magical forest of Burzee, where Claus grew up. We also have another kind of puppet, which is a Muppet-style puppet, and that was coined by the late Jim Henson. Muppet is a puppet whose mouth moves. Basically, you put your hand inside, and that's just a standard Muppet style. This is the
I thought I had
alligator.
dental problems.
This is from Punch and Judy. This is the alligator from Punch and Judy. We also have a dinosaur from one of our old retired shows here.
This is pre-Jurassic Park?
Yeah, absolutely. Another example of a Muppet-style puppet is one of the larger head puppets like this. This is how they start out. You have a control
Rob,
back here
hold that
for
up
your
again,
hand.
facing. So the head goes in this side.
Right. You have your hand in there, and then
Now turn it.
okay, and then this
Yeah.
is the final. This is a painted version of the same.
I'll hand one.
There you go.
And now we've got this done.
one here.
We have this way. That looks good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the finished product.
Mm-hmm.
And the one I'm holding, is the...
That's the starting. That's where the starting point. That's just raw latex rubber that's been poured into the mold before we've gotten a chance to paint it or do any work on it. So that's That's a beginner puppet. That's how
Do you
they
do any
start.
molding where you use actual faces to pour the latex or plaster Paris on to which to make a mold?
You should explain.
I do use face casts for some puppets. One for a segment we'll be doing later. But we do a material called alginate, which is it's basically a seaweed material that they use for thickener in ice creams and so on. The alginate casts the person's face, and we put a mother mold of plaster bandages over that, and then when we pull that, we go through a series of intermolds until we finally come up with the final puppet head. But we don't do that all that often. Maybe sometimes for a puppet's hand or something, we'll cast a human hand. Another kind of puppet is a shadow puppet. And a shadow puppet is not a attractive puppet. It's a puppet that's made only to be
Now,
seen
I'm
in
facing
shadow.
the finished side, or am I facing
There
the
is no
front
finished side because a shadow puppet is completely two-dimensional. And what it is
I
there's
feel right at home.
there's a curtain, a translucent curtain that is in front of this this puppet, and a light curtain comes behind it. We use a projector or something along those lines, and then the shadow is all that's seen. So everything that you see that is in white right now will appear as black, and then every place where there's a cutout, that's where the light will shine through and appear as white. So that's a little more along the lines of graphics and two-dimensional art, which is really where Wendy's expertise comes in.
Or remember when you were little and you got puppets?
Yeah, it has a
against
you know
the wall?
Oh,
a
the little
bunny
rabbit,
or
the
or a
rabbit
ducky, and
thing, yes.
it's,
Put on
the
which
same,
fingers?
it's just a little more complicated.
Something like that.
We also do masks, large-scale masks. This is one of Wendy's masks. It's the sun from a puppet show we do called Bits and Dabble Fiddle Kablooey, and it is...
Wait a minute, let's repeat that one. It's
well,
called what?
Bits and Dabble Fiddle
Hold it up
Kablooey.
again. That's unusual. It looks like the Southern California sun.
Yes. We do a routine about... I'm always chasing rainbows, and one of Wendy's puppets is a marionette with raindrops on the strings, and he's generally blue about it being, you know, full of rain, and then these flowers come out, and at the end the sun comes out. It's a show done all with music, no dialogue. A lot of people ask us how long it takes to build our puppets, and it's we don't really keep a time clock, so we have no real idea.
Well,
Some simple puppets could take just a few minutes.
this guy would take about 8 hours.
About
8 hours for him? Is it difficult changing from making costumes or clothes for people and making them for your people?
I prefer puppets.
Why, they don't squirm when you're fitting them, or?
That's one reason.
And if you stick a pin in it, it doesn't yell.
They're a challenge. On a hand puppet, they're unlike a puppet like this is a rod puppet and has straight shoulders like a person.
Okay. A rod puppet now is the one that's manipulated by little handles that move up and down and sideways.
Right.
Marionette would be the same way to costume. However, hand puppets are a challenge because
You notice the human hand, the way we hold it, one shoulder would be higher than the other.
Oh, yes.
and they have to be right and left-handed puppets.
Sometimes
so
in a
that
production,
was a challenge in the beginning.
sometimes in a production we have to duplicate two exactly similar puppets, but one for the right and one for the left. So
Because somebody else is using this
somebody has
hand.
to use
So you
or a
need-
character has to enter from this side or enter from that side.
And the biggest problem on a hand puppet of this side is their shoulders, because they don't really have a shoulder.
That's right.
I have the same problem.
You also have
No
to be
waist,
able
no
to.
shoulder.
You also have to be able to costume so that the puppet can close its hands, so it doesn't. It can pick things up. If it has, like, say, a big chest or something, and your fingers are in the way, they won't close. You have to be able to have flexibility. There are a lot of mechanical requirements as well as making it look good. And Wendy does all of that. Some of the things she does at the theater is she's our costumer, of course. She sews all of the puppets, but she also is responsible for doing all of a lot of the booking of the shows and getting the phone calls and making sure that the calendar stays straight. She manages our publicity. She is responsible for the art direction of a show, picking the fabrics and the colors, and what colors will go into a show, what colors won't go into a show, as well as performing with us.
Do you freelance on the outside? You sound like just what I need in my own personal life. Someone to basically manage me. You're supposed to be here at 4 o'clock, there at 5 o'clock. Don't wear the blue tie, wear the gray tie. Put your pants on. You're going out, you know, whatever.
Since we're married, that pretty well fills up my time managing his time.
Your previous experience was in dance, wasn't it?
As a child, and that's helped with the puppetry for movement.
She's very natural. in her movement.
I've only been puppeteering for, what, a little over a year and a half now? About a year and a half.
Before that was behind-the-scenes work, but she's become quite a good puppeteer.
At this wedding, did any of my friends here on my right and left attend as guests?
We kept the puppets at home. We try to think of them as tools, you know, and a carpenter doesn't get emotionally involved with its hammer or anything along those lines. But no, we did inadvertently at one point or another, when the lights were on from the video camera, we did break into some shadow puppets and things like that. But I think
a napkin puppet. Yeah.
But Wendy used her costuming skills. She made her own dress. She did all of the place settings. She made everything from scratch. And I made a couple of little figurines of us for the top of the wedding cake.
Well, it sounds like you were doing a production for kids.
It almost was. It was a production.
Yes, except it was impromptu.
This, I just found something to itch here. This is like doing a production. How difficult is it to come up with a new theme or a new show?
Ooh.
You said this character is from which show?
Zoo Done It.
Zoo Done It. And where is T-Rex from?
From Santa Claus Meets the Dinosaurs, which is a retired show.
And my gator
Punch and
friend?
Judy, Santa Claus, The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, Bits and Dabble Fiddle Kablooey. That pipe organ is from our show about the Mission Inn.
Gotcha.
We just have, you know, dozens of shows, and each of them have their own art direction. And we have a 5-year plan. We know what shows we're going to produce for the next 5 years. It's just
And how many new shows every year? If I buy that $33 season ticket.
Well, 3 or 4 new shows, because it takes 6 to 8 months to build a new show a year. But we also have currently 16 shows in rotation. So we have 16 shows, and then we add another 3 or 4 shows per year. So it's
So if
always
I'm
adding.
Retiring a show.
And then sometimes we retire a show.
So if I'm bringing in some kids at 5 years old, up to 7 at least, they have a chance of seeing new shows every year.
Right.
Right.
Right, all the time.
We're talking with Rob and Wendy D'Arc of Kidstuff, located in downtown Riverside. Now, don't go away. We're going to take a short break, and then you're going to see a performance of, and let me check my script here. Actually, I think I'd be better off if I asked Rob what the performance is you're going to see.
You're going to see a tightrope walker named Valentina from our production Bits and Dabble Fiddle Kablooey, which is a musical.
Would you mind repeating both the lead's name and the show again?
Valentina is the tightrope walker.
Valentina.
And the name of the show is Bits and Dabble Fiddle Kablooey. It's a show with all music, no dialogue. It's sort of a fantasia of puppetry, if I can say that without getting
You certainly can say without getting sued. I'm looking forward to seeing this. I'm Sandy Sandison, going to sit back at the 90-plus seat Kidstuff Theater, well, pretend, and watch whatever he said.
Kidstuff.